Hi everybody, I am not driving. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. See, here's Dustin. He's driving. He's doing the driving. There's Athena. She's asleep. Anyway, we're on our way to the Morgan County Fair. And that's going to be our 4th county fair, I think. Is that right, Dustin?
Yes.
Okay. So we're trying to catch them all, as the kids say in the Pokemon leagues. And that would be 13 county fairs. So I'll let you know if we get there. But we got to do this hashtag Ask Dan segment. And so I got a couple of questions that I want to get to. And one is from a Facebook follower who says, I don't really have a policy question. I'm on board with everything I've heard from you. Thank you. And you think that this should be easy then, right? No. My big concern is, how does a civil rights lawyer win in this district when the area is predominantly rural? And so, I mean, I guess I have to sort of question the premise of that question, which is that, you know, a civil rights lawyer only does urban things, and that's not true. I've represented people in very, very rural areas for my entire career. It's just kind of part and parcel of the job when you're in this region of the country. That's both in Indiana and in Kentucky. I've represented migrant farm workers and just people from all walks of life. So, you know, civil rights are human rights, and they happen everywhere. They don't happen just in the cities. But I mean, I think more directly to your question, you know, I'm familiar with the rural areas. I grew up here. I've lived in city. I grew up in Henryville for the first part of my life. That's my first memories were from Henryville. That's a very rural area. And of course now I live in Midtown New Albany, which is, I guess, just about as urban as you're going to get within this district. And you know, I don't want to be so arrogant as to pretend that I know what everybody needs in the district overall. I mean, that I think would be the fundamental problem. You know, if I were to say to myself, well, I'm a civil rights lawyer and I've worked in cities, and therefore I really understand the needs of people in the urban part, you know, of the district, I think that would be a huge mistake. I think that you know, this is sort of part of what campaigning is about, is going out and listening to people and figuring out what they need, whether they're in the rural part of the district or whether they're in you know, a more urban part of the district, figuring out what they need and what they want. And those needs are very diverse across the district, right? You've got, you know, people in Johnson County who have different needs than people in Bloomington, who have much different needs than people in Orange County, who have much different needs than people in New Albany, right? And so we got to be sensitive to that in a district of this size. You know, it's big. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of diverse needs. And so you've got to go out and talk to people and listen to them. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we're doing all these county fairs, right? Is to and all the events that are all over the district. We're going to try to get to as many of those as we can over the next year and a half. And we're going to try to talk to as many people as we can over the next year and a half. And when we go out and we have those conversations with people, we take notes about what problems people are identifying, what solutions, you know, regular folks have come up with to those problems, and then we go back to our secret lair, and we sort of you know, crunch that data and try to figure out how to turn those problems into real policy solutions, right? That's what you should be doing, I think, as an elected representative. So, you know, look, I don't pretend to know all the answers, and I don't pretend to, not for the rural people and not for the urban people, but we're going to go out and we're going to talk to as many people as we can and come up with the best solutions that we can. You know, and I still think, too, that there is a baseline for what people need everywhere, right, in all parts of the district. And I think we can start with that. You know, everybody needs health care that doesn't break the bank. Everybody needs quality education. Everybody needs, you know, a safe environment with clean water to drink and clean air to breathe, that kind of stuff. we start with those basic building blocks and provide a positive agenda for people. Something that most everyone can relate to, and something that hopefully they can vote for, right? To stress to people that we've got ideas that they can vote for instead of just voting against a candidate that they don't like. That's really important to me, and that's what we're going to be trying to accomplish throughout the next year and a half of this campaign, along with trying to figure out how to solve the unique problems in the different parts of the district. That's an ongoing conversation. It won't end after 18 months of campaigning. It won't end after 2 years or 10 years or 25 years in office, right? It's got to be an ongoing conversation because the needs of the people in the district are going to continue to change, and we need to be sensitive to that. We need to listen to those needs and to tell people that they're being listened to. I also wrote about how we are going to win for the Down with Tyranny blog. So if you look, today is August the 2nd. I think my op-ed was published yesterday, August the 1st. If you look at the Down with Tyranny blog, Google that, and check out my op-ed about how we're going to win this race in the 9th District. Next question comes from a Twitter user named On the Flip Side 09. In Twitter, you only get 140 characters, so sometimes difficult to articulate these questions, but I think I got the gist of this one. It's, we have a broken foster care system, kids removed repeatedly, lack of homes, and child sex abuse epidemic. What say you? And, the last county fair that we were at, I was talking to a guy whose parents he's grown now, but looks like he's doing very well, which is great. But his parents had a drug addiction problem. And they ended up going, this is when he was in high school, and they ended up going to jail. And he went not into foster care because there's no foster care available, but they sent him to a youth detention center. He hadn't done anything wrong. They sent him to a youth detention center. So that strikes me as ridiculous. And he asked me and some other folks, what do you think about that, and how can we make sure that never happens to any other kids? Because to say that his experience was an unpleasant one would be a dramatic understatement. And first thing I'd say about that is that you got to deal with that problem on the front end, and that means we don't treat drug addiction like it's a criminal justice problem. We treat it like it's a public health problem, which it is. And I think that makes a lot of difference in terms of, and this guy was a little bit older, so it was especially a problem, I would guess, at the time that, his parents were incarcerated, and that we were just locking up everybody that had a drug problem, and that's the way we did things for a long time in the United States, and in certain areas it's the way we still do things. We got to move away from that, and not just treat locking people up like it's a solution to a drug problem. It absolutely is not. But in terms of, how do we deal with the foster care problem itself, and how do we deal with kids that don't have anybody to care for them, kids that might end up on the street, et cetera, et cetera. Look, finding foster parents is tough. Finding really good foster parents is even more difficult. Keeping an eye on the foster parents that we have in the system is difficult, and I'm sensitive to that. We're not always going to have great foster parents for every kid that needs them. There are great foster parents out there, and I commend anybody who wants to get into that, because I know it's a thankless task. But I've also heard plenty of horror stories about foster parents that don't exactly have the purest of motives. And regardless, there's always going to be a shortage of those folks around. What do we do about that? I think, one solution is sort of public, private sector, nonprofit sector partnerships, right? Expanding those, because if you get out into, mean, there are people that have great nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to getting kids off the street, to making sure that kids have a safe place to live, and plenty of food to eat, and then they're able to continue their education, and they just stay safe in general. So a lot of those organizations are underfunded and under-resourced, but are staffed by well-meaning people or run by well-meaning people. And I think that the government should make it a priority to support those organizations. Not only support them with a regulatory and statutory framework, but to support them with dollars, right? And allow them to grow their staff, allow them to grow their programs, allow them to take in more kids and serve more kids to where we're not having to beat the bushes, especially in rural areas, to find suitable foster parents for every kid that needs them. And I can hear the criticisms of this now, which is like, it's just another liberal plan to take lots of money away from people and tax and spend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, look, this is the kind of thing, this is a perfect example of the kind of thing that we pay for no matter what, right? So we can pay a little up front, or we can pay a lot on the back end. And, just as an example, the guy that I was talking to at the county fair, I asked him what happened to everybody else that he was in that detention center with. Well, a lot of them in the same boat that he was, end up in a detention center through no fault of their own. And what happens to them? Well, a lot of them end up on drugs, or in jail, or dead, or all of the above, right? Some combination of the above. And we pay for that. I mean, one way or the other, we're going to pay for it. And it's a whole hell of a lot more expensive to lock somebody up, as an adult for months or years at a time than it is to provide them with stable housing when they're kids, and hopefully head off the problem before it ever becomes a serious problem in the first place. So that's sort of the short-term solution to that. And, of course, it doesn't perfectly solve the problem of the foster care system, but I think we should look at putting lots and lots of resources into nonprofit organizations that already do this kind of work, that already are very good at it, but are under-resourced. So we can do that through community block grants. We can do that through any number of different means, but it's something that we should prioritize. All right, we are almost to the Morgan County Fair, and I have a little girl back here that I'm going to have to wake up and convince her to get on some rides and eat some cotton candy. So I love you all. Please send your questions with the hashtag AskDan on Facebook or on Twitter or wherever you get your social media, and I will see you next time.